Video games are ingrained in our culture these days. The video game industry has ballooned to a $150 billion industry, larger than both movies and music combined. Chances are you played video games before your stroke, and if you didn't, maybe you should consider it. Because a 2021 study found that stroke survivors who gamed at home as part of their home therapy made as much arm improvement and hand improvement as those who were in outpatient therapy. Video gaming can be helpful to improve hand coordination, memory, problem solving, and attention, all of which are key factors in stroke recovery. Plus, it's fun. But playing video games after a stroke can be challenging if you experience one-sided weakness, which is why I'm excited to share a new, affordable, and adaptive controller today, as well as how I use it in my favorite game, Stardew Valley. Make sure that you stay tuned until the end because I'm going to be doing a giveaway for one of these controllers. Let's get into it. Most video game controllers are made to be used with both hands, but 8BitDo's Lite SE adaptive controller is universally designed so that players can use it with or without limited mobility. Before I get into specs, I want to thank 8BitDo for donating this controller for me to review and to give away. This is my honest opinion. I was not paid to provide it. On to the specs. This controller is compatible with Nintendo Switch and Switch Lite, Android 9.0 and later, as well as Raspberry Pi. Now, I was able to get this working on PC as a USB controller. This was particularly in Steam on Switch mode, but you will likely have to remap some of the controls to get this working appropriately. There is an S input and a D input, S for Switch and D for Android. Let's talk some unique things about this controller. So while it can be played with two hands, it also can be placed flat on a table for one-handed gameplay. Something to keep in mind, it's got a non-slip mat on the back of the controller, which is going to keep it from slipping and sliding away from you while you're playing. One thing to note though is this non-slip mat is not removable, so don't take it off because it's not going to go back on. All of the buttons are located on the top of this controller. On most controllers, you've got the L1, R1 buttons as well as the L2, R2 triggers on the front of the controller, which can be really difficult to use if you're playing one-handed or you have that limited range to reach up to the front. So those buttons have now become on the front of the 8BitDo Lite SE controller. They've also moved L3 and R3 buttons onto the top of the controller as well, which are usually accessed by pushing down on the joystick. I have read some reviews in which users thought that it would be better to also include shoulder buttons as well as having the top-facing buttons as well. So maybe that will be something 8BitDo will consider in the future versions of this controller. The Lite SE was designed with buttons that have less resistance, and the joysticks have greater sensitivity to touch, which can make gameplay a lot smoother for individuals with limited mobility. However, if you are playing a game that requires a lot of precision, that extra sensitivity might work against you. Something else that I've seen from reviews on the Lite SE is that this only comes with the directional button D-pad versus like an easy press D-pad that you see here on my Switch Lite. Some users prefer this type of D-pad versus the directional buttons, so that may be an individual preference to think about. The controller itself is lightweight and compact, making it easier to take with you and game on the go. The Lite SE controller has Bluetooth connectivity, and you can expect to get around 18 hours of play on 1 to 2 hours of charge. In your box, you're going to get the controller, USB charging cable, and instruction manual. Unfortunately, the Lite SE is not compatible with 8BitDo's Ultimate software, which allows for custom button mapping, adjusting joystick sensitivity, and creating macros for button combinations. But if you're playing on Switch, you can go in and remap your buttons using the Switch control settings, and there are instructions on how to do this in the 8BitDo instruction manual for this controller. Now that we've talked specs, let's talk about price. This little controller comes in at a super price conscious cost of 35 American dollars. It's available for purchase on 8BitDo's website and through Amazon, both of which I will leave a link to down in the description below. While there are many other adaptive controllers on the market, some of them are a bit more expensive than this one. However, they may be worth the price to you if you want to game on different consoles or need an extra layer of customization. For example, Xbox's adaptive controller starts at around $99, but that price will usually go up to include the other connective devices for more customization. It is larger and takes up more space, and I've heard that it requires some extensive setup. But if you are looking for extra customization, an option like that might be good for you. All right, so I am excited to introduce you to my favorite video game, Stardew Valley, which is available on most consoles and PC. It is by nature a farming simulator, but much more than that. You can make friends with the townsfolk and go fight bad guys in the caves. So I'm going to be using this game to show you the 8BitDo Lite SE controller in action. Now, to note, I am playing this on the Switch, and I have modified the controls so that the right joystick has taken over the left joystick control, so I can show you some one-handed gaming. So I am using my right joystick to move around, and I will be using the R2 button, typically the right trigger, to cycle through the tools down at the bottom of my little backpack here where all my tools are. So I need a scythe to clear some of these weeds away. So let's go ahead and cycle through to the scythe. And then I'm just gonna walk here using the joystick. And I'm doing this all with my right hand. Clear away some of this grass. Let's go ahead and cycle through using that R2 button again to get to our pickaxe. These buttons and the joystick are very sensitive. They're not kidding around about that. Also, something I didn't realize, but there's a little vibration sense that happens when you're hitting those rocks or chopping down the wood. So I'll cycle back through to my axe and we'll hit Y. Yeah, there's a little vibration each time that you do that. So yeah, that's a brief introduction. I have enjoyed playing with this controller. Now, if you have a little bit of movement in your affected side, and just to show you all for today's purposes, my left hand is going to be affected today. Control mapping some of these buttons over, I still have the left joystick set to walk. So if you do have a little bit of movement and you want to use your affected side while you're playing, that's a great way to get in everyday therapy. So whatever level of movement you have, if you are able to get your arm positioned in a way to access the flat controller, you can still try to get your affected arm and hand involved as you video game. All right, so let's talk about what I like about this controller and what I think could be improved. So I do like that you can use this controller completely one-handed if need be. I like that the buttons and the joysticks are extra sensitive so that if you do have limited mobility and you want to still try to play with your affected side or affected hand, you can. I like that this controller is simple and lightweight to use, and that you can remap the buttons in the Switch console if need be. I do also like that it has this non-slip mat, so if you need to play with the controller flat on a surface, you can. The things I think can be improved are the incompatibility with 8BitDo's Ultimate software, which allows for greater customization. I hope to see this in newer versions of this controller. The fact that the only console that this is compatible with is Switch and Switch Lite. And I would have liked to have seen a detachable non-slip mat because some people might not like to play with this on. It might be a little bit uncomfortable if you are trying to play with two hands. But otherwise, I think that it is a great little controller. For the price point, you can pretty much not beat it. And especially if you're playing on Switch, they make it really easy to connect and go. All right, everyone, that's it for today. Let's get into the details of how to enter this giveaway. So first things first, I want to thank 8BitDo so much for donating this controller for me to review and give away to one of you. Second thing, if you are looking for the official rules of this giveaway, they are down in the description below. Third, how we actually enter. If you would, I'd like you to leave a comment on this video. In 1 week, next Friday, I am going to randomly be picking a winner, and I will respond to you in the comments. So be on the lookout for that next Friday. And that's it. And as always, I will be leaving a link down in the description below to sign up for the email list, which gets you access to free stroke recovery tips and motivational emails, as well as a free copy of my ebook, The Stroke Recovery Pocket Guide. And if you find value in what we do here at Post Stroke, please consider donating, either via our PayPal for a one-time donation or through our Patreon by becoming a Patreon member. In exchange for a monthly donation, you'll get access to cool perks like social media shoutouts, behind the scenes videos, and even YouTube shoutouts. And on that note, I have a shout out for Doug C. Thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter at the Empowerer level. We cannot do what we do without you. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.